When it comes to keeping you and your business safe, Bay Alarm brings the best, like offering virtual security consultations using your mobile phone. Just visit bayalarm.com and their security specialists will set everything up. It's one more way Bay Alarm puts the pro in protection. Because if your security's not the best, you're not secure. Go to bayalarm.com/KNBR and schedule your free virtual security consultation today. Now, more than ever, Bay Alarm. ACO 28CCL 880138.
Now, back to Murph and Mac on KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
All right, let's talk about, the NBA. We got it going here. Last week of the regular season, coming down to it. Looking like Sunday's Warriors-Memphis game is going to be what it's all about. By the way, I don't think we have a start time on that game, do we? No official start time on that game. Yeah, no, not yet. Because is that going to be pending the TV schedule, I guess? Yeah, TBA on Sunday. So just one of the things we can talk about with our next guest, Kevin Pelton of ESPN. Covers the WNBA, too, and the NBA. Real interesting story about the NBA future power rankings that he did with Bobby Marks. We can talk about that in the playoffs. Kevin, welcome to the Murph and Mac Show here in San Francisco on KNBR and on the UMA guest line. How you doing this morning, Kevin?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
We're doing good, man. What do you think about this Golden State Warrior run here at the end? The theory that's kind of bubbling around the Bay is that after beating Utah and Phoenix Monday and Tuesday, and then seeing Utah lose again to Portland last night, is there something bubbling here in terms of the Warriors as a 7 or an 8 making a legit run at taking down a Phoenix or a Utah in the first round?
Well, I don't think they're the kind of team you want to see, particularly, as an 8 seed. I mean, that's obviously unusual this year where you look at the Lakers as the defending champs, probably going to be in the play-in tournament, along with, I guess it's your last two Western Conference champions in terms of the Warriors and the Lakers. So that's an unusual situation, and to have somebody, individual stars as great as LeBron, AD, and Steph Curry potentially on the other side of those 1-8, 2-7 matchups, combined with the fact that these Jazz and Suns teams don't have the playoff track record that we're used to for the top two seeds in conference, it does make things more interesting. Now, the caveat here is a big reason why the Jazz have lost these last two games is they've been playing without Mike Conley and Donovan Mitchell. Mm-hmm. We've learned that Donovan Mitchell is going to be out for the rest of the regular season, but I anticipate he'll be back for the playoffs. Mike Conley surely too, and the Jazz are a very different team with those two guys in the lineup. For sure, and it's to be factored in and noted going forward. Now about Phoenix, the bubble team that went 8-0 and then carried it into this year, where I think they're currently 48-21. I'd love your breakdown on them in terms of it seems like tall cotton for them. It seems like altitude sickness for this team to go this high, this fast. But are you seeing enough from the Chris Paul, Devin Booker Suns to believe, or they look like one of those teams that could be vulnerable? I think relative to a typical top two seed, yes. I mean, one of the things that their success this year has been built on is they've been unusually healthy. They've had Jay Crowder miss a period of time here lately before, I think he came back for that Warriors game, or maybe the game against the Lakers before it. But, they've had Devin Booker and Chris Paul stay healthy all season. That's been such a big factor in Chris Paul's comeback late in his career here, where we thought he was kind of finished as a top-level player in 2019 when he dealt with a series of injuries, and lo and behold, he's managed to stay healthy all of the last two seasons, and that's been a big reason why Oklahoma City and Phoenix now have overachieved those two teams. I mean, Chris Paul is being counted on, I think, to supply a lot of the playoff experience for this Suns team, because along with Crowder, because it's going to be a new experience for guys like Booker and Mikal Bridges and DeAndre Ayton, who are such an important part of this team. And the other thing I wonder about, the starting lineup has improved over the course of the year for the Suns, but a lot of their success has been beating up on opponents' second units with one of those two guards in there, and they often go smaller on that second unit, space the floor a little better. Will that be as big of an advantage when you get in a playoff setting and starters are going 35, 36 minutes a night? I think that is a fair question about the Suns. All right, so Utah and Phoenix, not your traditional, it's not the KD, Steph, Clay Warriors up there up at the top. So that leads me to just kind of a general question about the Western Conference. I mean, it almost feels, Kevin, we're talking to Kevin Pelton at ESPN, it almost feels like you could make an argument for almost any one of the 8 teams. Let's assume the Warriors and the Lakers are the 2 teams, just for fun. Is that an overstatement, do you think? Or do you feel like you could make an argument for any one of those 8 teams to win the West and making it an absolute free-for-all in some sense?
No.
Yeah, the argument gets harder at some point along the line, probably outside the top four there. But certainly, I mean, Portland in 6 is playing terrific basketball right now. This is a team that was in the Eastern Conference, in the Western Conference Finals 2 years ago against the Warriors. So again, to go back to the previous point, the 4 teams you'd say are going to have the top 4 seeds other than Denver. None of those teams have been to the conference finals recently, and the teams that have been to the conference finals recently, Portland, Golden State, Lakers, are going to be in the bottom half of the bracket, and the other team in the bottom half of the bracket that isn't in that group is Dallas, which has played is well relative to what they did in the first half of the season since the All-Star break. Is just about anybody. They've got Luka Doncic, is good in individual talent as these other teams. So again, I do think that it's an incredibly wide open year in the Western Conference.
And what do you make, Kevin, of the Lakers when it's all said and done? They're 40-30. They're looking at a play-in. The LeBron mystery, the AD health. What do you make of them?
Yeah, I think we're going to learn a lot this weekend about what to expect from LeBron James coming back. I mean, you go back to last Friday, it kind of seemed like, okay, the Lakers have survived here. I guess this is 2 weeks ago Friday now. When he came back from that ankle injury, seemingly a little ahead of schedule. They were still in, I think, 5th at that point, ahead of Dallas and ahead of Portland. And, okay, now they're going to hit the gas and go to the finish line. And that hasn't happened because he was unable to stay on the court, dealt with soreness in that ankle even after coming back. And Anthony Davis has been, up and down, more up lately in his comeback from his Achilles and calf injuries. And Dennis Schroeder's absence has also been a huge factor in terms of him being in the health and safety protocols. And now you're looking at a situation where, maybe LeBron gets a couple of games before the play-in. Schroeder, if he's available for the play-in, it will almost certainly be his first game action in a couple of weeks. That's an unusual challenge for them to deal with. But at the same time, they've got so much talent in terms of AD and LeBron that, we saw what they can do when those two guys are healthy and playing well in last year's bubble playoffs. And that's going to make it hard to pick against them in any series, despite the fact that they're not going to have home court advantage at all.
So just to kind of build on that a little bit, Kevin, do the Lakers stand a legitimate chance if one of those two guys is unable to go throughout the postseason or on and off throughout the postseason due to lingering injuries? Can they do it with only one of the two healthy?
I think probably not. I mean, the defense that they've played over the course of the season, regardless of who's been in the lineup, gives them a chance.
Yeah.
Especially if they can get good three-point shooting in a short series from the likes of Wesley Matthews and Markieff Morris and Alex Caruso, guys like that, Kyle Kuzma. That's sort of the formula that got them to the championship last year, but obviously that was supplemented with Anthony Davis and LeBron to take over late in games and to create those open shots for those role players. Without one of those guys against the strength of this year's Western Conference, I think it'd be very difficult.
Talking to Kevin Pelton of ESPN. Good breakdown of the Western Conference playoffs. Just a quick word on the East before I want to ask you about this future power rankings thing. I mean, is it basically just an exercise in futility that the Brooklyn Nets will win the East with their 3 guys out there all for once, finally? I mean, I know we can pay lip service for Philly, maybe Giannis and the Bucks, but is it for you a fait accompli as much as talk radio predictions go?
No, I don't think so because of the fact that similar to the Lakers, we just haven't seen those 3 guys together where there's still major question marks about their health and how able they're going to be to stay on the court in the playoffs. And, as long as one of those guys are out, we saw the Nets play a back-to-back set in Milwaukee a couple weeks ago and lose both of those games. If you take one of those guys out of the equation, it becomes a lot more difficult for them to deal with, somewhat more cohesive teams that have a lot more experience playing together in Milwaukee and Philadelphia. So they are my favorites. They're going to be my pick to come out of the Eastern Conference because they've been so good with all 3 of those guys on the court and reasonably effective even at less than full strength. But and getting home court potentially for that 2-3 matchup against Milwaukee as it looks like they're going to have now, that's also a big factor. But I still need to, see that those guys are actually going to be able to stay on the court and gel together over the course of a long playoff run before I would describe it as a certainty.
Yeah, it's so weird that ever since the Harden trade, they've just been sort of incubating or whatever. They're just sort of they haven't appeared. It's like, okay, we know you're going to be awesome. One of these days, we just waiting. So your hesitancy is well grounded there. This story that you and Bobby Marks wrote, really interesting. NBA future power rankings predicting the best and worst franchises over the next 3 years. And you guys did it on categories of talent, roster, players, management, money, the market, and the draft. And, it's a fun exercise. It's one of these classic kind of barstool arguments. You guys have the Nets as the number one team poised to dominate the next 3 years. You have the Clippers, number 2. Interesting. Okay. Then I'm going through it here. I see the Lakers, number 3. Okay. I'm scrolling. I see the Nuggets at number 4. Okay. I'm scrolling. I see the Sixers at 5. I see the Bucks at 6. The Knicks at 7. Now, Kevin, now we're starting to get a little itchy here out here in Steph Curry land. I see the Jazz at 8. The Suns at 9. The Mavericks at 10. Uh-oh, what's going on? The Heat at 11. The Grizzlies, the Raptors, the Golden State Warriors are 15th in your future power rankings, Kevin. Please defend this atrocity here.
Say it ain't so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say sometimes. So obviously we're doing this based on a formula, those categories you mentioned. And sometimes I think the weighting of those categories throws out a different result than I would kind of come up with if we were just sitting there and ranking. Because I agree. I had the same thought when I saw the Warriors in 15th. I think the big question is for them is going to be, as it has been, since the start of this season, is can you marry up this current group led by Steph and Klay, and presumably Klay Thompson and Draymond Green with this next generation of James Wiseman, whoever they get with the Minnesota pick, whenever that comes, and a pick in probably the middle of the first round with their own pick this year. That's been the interesting challenge, and this year it did not really work out in terms of how they hoped, in terms of James Wiseman's development timing up with Steph Curry and Draymond Green, and really this run has come with Wiseman off the court and focusing on veteran talent. So, how that marries up the next couple of years, and whether Steph can continue to play at this level. I mean, I don't know that anyone expected him to be this good at this stage of his career, and also this healthy. I mean, that's been a big factor in their success this season too, him staying on the court. Those are the questions I think that drive whether they're a top 10 team over the next 3 years or maybe just outside of it.
Yeah, that doesn't jib. Old Joe Lacob in his light years. Light years doesn't mean 15th there, Kevin.
Not really.
Sure doesn't.
No.
He's coming for you, Kevin. You and Bobby better watch out. Next time he sees you guys, he's coming for you guys. So anyway, fun discussion, fun topic. People should read it at ESPN.com, NBA's future power rankings. Kevin Pelton and Bobby Marks. Kevin, thanks for the basketball chat. It's good to get ready for the playoffs, man. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, Kevin Pelton, there you go.
When it comes to keeping you and your business safe, Bay Alarm brings the best, like offering virtual security consultations using your mobile phone. Just visit bayalarm.com and their security specialists will set everything up. It's one more way Bay Alarm puts the pro in protection. Because if your security's not the best, you're not secure. Go to bayalarm.com/KNBR and schedule your free virtual security consultation today. Now, more than ever, Bay Alarm, ACO 28CCL 880138.